Hello,
Mr. Starlin?
speaking.
Yes, sir. This is William Robinson of Vile Hair.
Okay, how you doing there?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, actually, after this premiere the other night, so I'm doing quite well, thank
you. Good to hear. Okay, do you have time for our interview, sir?
Say that again, please?
I was calling for the Vile Hair interview, sir. Do you have time?
Oh, yes, I'm all set up. You're one of many I'm doing today.
Okay, good. Just making sure. Okay, since you are on a schedule, so I'll go ahead and get started here.
Fire away.
Okay, first question. Were the death of story in the original Infinity Gauntlet storylines, do you think that the Infinity War and Endgame films captured the comic book concepts well?
I never came in here expecting a, faithful page-by-page adaptation, because only a fool was going to figure a multi-million-dollar film company is going to, adapt its, completely and honestly and faithfully. And because I've worked in this business before, under peripheral edges. And so, I came in expecting many changes for a number of reasons. For, among them, the fact that the Marvel Universe doesn't have all the characters that appear in the Infinity Gauntlet.
Right.
So, right off the bat, I had to accept that there were going to be changes. And to tell you the truth, though, I have been so pleasantly surprised at how faithful and how close they have tried to stay to the original story as they went along. More changes in Endgame than they would have had in Infinity War, but they stayed with the spirit, and Marcus and McFeely and the Russos have done a terrific job in my book. I couldn't be more pleased. I think they have a slightly different Thanos, but he's very recognizable from my Thanos. And, Josh Brolin did a terrific job of acting the character out. And, I've got no complaints.
Good to hear. Now, the work you do, is there a difference in process writing cosmic stories like Infinity War and Red Star, and on the street level stories you did when you wrote during your Batman run?
Well, during the Batman run, it was much more grounded in reality. What I was reading at that time had a big influence. I was devouring Elmore Leonard when I was doing Batman, and Andrew Vox and a number of other people writing those in that crime genre.
Right.
And so I was sort of grounded in it at that time, and actually trying to clean up my act a little bit, which I've never been able to actually continue on with. So the cosmic stuff came back when I went back into a less restricted lifestyle. We'll leave it at that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Next question. Your stories, depending on where they are, usually are pretty fast-paced and always have some kind of high-stakes concept in nature. Did you find your time in the service kind of affect this at all, or?
Well, everything in life and reading, just going through the everyday existence. Norman Mailer once said that only true stories end in death. And these superheroes, are dealing in games that are very high stakes, and I've actually tried to bring a little bit more reality into them over the years than are normal, I guess. But I've always wanted to think, I know it's entertainment, that's why it's fast-paced, but at the same time, I want to be able to sneak in those more little in-depth things and make the characters a little bit more than the two-dimensional things that, are the norm. And so, I've played with it and came up with my own little formula along the way, and it's worked out pretty good as far as I'm concerned. We've had fairly good sales, and the response has been pretty positive. So, I figure I've hit some kind of right track here.
I would say so, sir. This question, I thought of. Snapping your fingers is a very human gesture. So I'm kind of curious what the idea was behind having Thanos use such an everyday action as an initiator to kill half the universe.
Well, it's also a very dismissive gesture. You go to Europe, some countries, when you want to get a waiter, you snap your fingers, and I always found that kind of rude. But it seems to be fading out as time goes on. But I just thought that he would not so much be contemptuous, but sort of dismissive of everything other than himself, that the snapping fingers was the only gesture that seemed to be the most natural gesture. I never even gave it all that much thought. It just, and I've been kind of surprised at what a major element to the story that was once it came out and the adaptation since then.
Huh. Yeah. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah,
very cool.
Personality thing that I never thought would become such a big factor.
Since in these films, several of the characters you've created have shown up on the big screen, is there a favorite of your comic creations that have shown up so far that you like the way they've done it in the movies?
Well, they've all been different, so it's hard to say one's a favorite and one's a not. Zoe Saldana's Gamora has been very much what I envisioned. I mean, she's probably the most faithful to what's in the comic book.
Right.
Thanos, I'm blown away by what they've done with him. Josh Brolin's study of the way somebody that large would move, and his delivery and cadence in his speeches are... I can't imagine anybody else playing him at this point. Batista on Drax, Batista and Gunn sort of came up with this unique character that's sort of a cross between the visual of the modern-day Drax and my version of Drax when he was brain damaged inside the Infinity Watch. Right. So they came up with something completely different, and but at the same time, all I can do is delight in it, because Batista has such a great sense of comedy timing that just about any scene he's in, he steals. So, it's a mixed bag, and, I'm curious to see what they do with Warlock and Shang-Chi down the line, I hear, from what I understand. So, we got some surprises coming our way. I'm still hoping for Pip the Troll to show up soon also.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine discussed if Nathan Fillion would be a good fit for Pip, just because CGI and he has the attitude for it. So,
yeah, we're curious to see how they handle him if they do it. And they're talking about Warlock, so I think Pip's not far behind.
Awesome, that's going to be interesting. That's actually all the questions I have. Since I saw the time slot was only 20 minutes, I didn't want to take all of your time, sir. So,
well, we still got some time to have. So,
yes, sir.
If you got anything else in mind, spring to it, and we'll jump at it.
Okay.
I'm good at impromptu stuff.
Okay. During the KG Beast and NKVD storylines for Batman, was a lot of that influenced by the Cold War stuff in the 80s and all the rumors of experiments and whatnot?
Well, also by, we had Reagan as president at that point, who looks like a terrific president now in retrospect with who we have it currently. But, there were some things that was going on at that time that, went against my views on things. So, there was just... it was a little bit of the end of the Cold War and winding down. And so, there was an epic struggle that that's the kind of thing I enjoy reading and writing about, from everywhere from Thanos to Dreadstar. They're all about epic struggles. So the conclusion of the Cold War was something right up my alley.
Right. And just to make sure I have my chronology right here, Dreadstar came before Thanos, correct?
No, Thanos was my first creation, actually. Him and Dreadstar are my favorite sons, if you want to put it that way. Having never dropped progeny personally, I tend to see these characters as my offspring. And the two of them, are, obviously my most popular at this point. Now, Thanos was in my first actual full-length comic up at Marvel, Iron Man 55, and Dreadstar, I don't think, came along for at least another 5-6 years. It was when the Epic line was coming up, and I started off the Metamorphosis Odyssey in Epic Illustrated, and in the 5th episode, Dreadstar pops up. Always intended to be the main character. I just delayed his appearance for a while, dramatic license.
Right.
And basically he went off on his own after that, and now we're reprinting it all over at Ominous here, and I think he's going to have a whole new life again.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out because I only had a few issues back years ago, so I'll be looking for that.
Well, the whole 1,500 pages will be available shortly.
Outstanding. Just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on the Thanos copter?
On the Thanos sculpture? Which one?
Copter.
The one from...
The helicopter.
Yeah. Okay, well, you know the story behind that. They had these Spidey super stories for kids, and I understand it's just become like one of the most popular memes out there right now. When you're working for somebody like Marvel and you create somebody, you have to accept the fact that other people are going to come along and do things with the character that not exactly what you had in mind. And I think the best example of that is probably the Thanos copter. There have been a few other things. I remember talking to Mark Waid some time ago, and he was doing Kazar. He was writing Kazar, and they had this Kazar fighting a X-Men villain, and at the last moment, they couldn't use the X-Men villain, and so they just threw in Thanos. And after a couple of, after I saw it, I went, well, why didn't they just put a big red splat on the cover? I mean, there's no way that Kazar could go toe-to-toe with Thanos for even 5 minutes. And Wade eventually, years later, I ran into Wade and he said, I'm really sorry about that. I had no control over it. They stuck it in at the last moment, and I'm really embarrassed. But the copter is the best one. The copter is the best one along those lines.
Oh well. And with the different merchandise that's come out, from toys to sculptures to whatever, is there any that you have of your creations that just that kind of makes you go, wow, they took my stuff from the page and I can just sit it here whenever I want?
Well, Slideshow did this one Thanos statue, which weighs like 50 pounds. We went down and did a promo video for it at the time, but they had to ship it to me much later because it was, in production over in Korea or wherever actually they make the statues and paint them up. And when it did show up, my wife happened to be out of town, and so I took a couple of pictures of the statue sitting at the dining room table having dinner with me, and later watching a presidential debate, and threw those up on Facebook, and everybody got a kick out of them. But I think my favorite is the Infinity Gauntlet oven mitt, which was the first piece of merchandise they did. And a short while after it came out, they discovered it bursts into flame if you get it around anything hot, so that's what they call it. So it's probably the most rare Infinity Gauntlet piece of merchandise out there at this point.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I also thought the bursting in the flames was very appropriate.
It is. Oh, that is hilarious.
Yeah, there's certain things as far as merchandising go. I have to scratch my head. There's a meme going around that you can throw Thanos' face into your emails. And I kept thinking, why would you want this guy showing up in your email? That's not a good sign.
Unless your really mean boss trying to fire someone that way.
That's the only way, that's the only occasion where I think that would be the appropriate thing to throw into an email. You have been terminated.
And I have the MP3 of a finger snap.
Yes, you have to add that into it in the text.
So from the do you have any new novels coming out? Just prose type stuff around the corner?
Yes, I've been working through Ominous. We just released Mind Games, an illustrated version of this novel that I wrote, and there were 3 more novels following it. I call it a trilogy with a prequel, but I injured my hand about 3 years back, and so doing the illustrated versions of the other 3 novels is just not going to happen because I can't draw that well anymore. And so I'm finishing off. I'm currently working on the last of the 3 novels that make up sort of the Lasgood Boys trilogy, Hardcore Station trilogy, actually call it. And soon as I get that polished off, I think we're going to do text versions of that, possibly as a hardcover thing to start off with through Ominous, and then find more of a mainstream publisher to do the paperbacks and what have you down the line. But yeah, there's a epic story coming down the line in prose for me within the next year or so. There'll be some announcement along the lines. It's not nothing official at this point, but it's coming.
Good.
Yeah, that's the thing with this business. There's always things in the works, like Dreadstar and that you can't talk about until it actually happens, until contracts are signed and that. So, we just sort of try and keep our mouth shut until the meantime.
All right. And one last question about Endgame. So this kind of wraps up the first 10 years of the Marvel movie series. Do you think incorporating the stakes of Infinity War and Endgame and everything else into that is the best send-off that they can get at this point, translating stuff from your work into this to make it just such a big scope of a film?
Have you seen Endgame yet?
No, sir.
Okay, you're in for a very satisfying experience. It's spectacular. It's an emotional roller coaster. It's a tremendous wrap-up for the last 20 movies that they've had. I mean, this is the conclusion. They're not running a in-credit scene at the end because this is a nice little place for it to come to a conclusion in this segment, and it'll be all new after this. And
right.
I got to tell you, I walked out of there, and I had to run into Russo's brothers and screenwriters Marcus and McFeely afterwards. And quite frankly, I was tongue-tied. I mean, I said, I love it. I don't know how to articulate it any better than that at this point because it's very dense, and I really have to see it about 2 or 3 more times, especially with the terrible sound system that they had at this auditorium we were at. Because I missed a few lines in that here and there, but I just found it a great wrap-up for what they've been doing for the last 10 years. Once you see it, you'll see what I mean. I've been looking at the movie reviews, and I haven't seen a bad one yet on it. So I think they hit all the cylinders just right this time around. You're in for a treat.
Outstanding. Okay, well, thank you for your time, Mr. John. I appreciate it. And this has been really cool for me because I am a fan of your work, sir, and I'm really glad I got this opportunity.
Well, thanks for keeping an eye on what I've been doing. It's a symbiotic relationship. You get entertained and I get to eat.
This is true.
Yeah, I think I come ahead on this deal, actually.
Probably so, but I won't tell anyone.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to kill my market like that.
Right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Starlin. I appreciate your time, sir, and you have a very nice day. And I will get.
And you have a good one yourself.
Yes, sir. And once I get this finished, my editor will get the link, and then we'll go from there, sir. You should get it from your folks once this is done.
I appreciate that. Always enjoy seeing what we've done.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. You take care.
You too, sir.